I can't believe this, but Jacob Degrom has made his free agency decision. Has signed a 5-year, $185 million deal with the Texas Rangers that includes a 6th year that can get up to a total of $222 million. In this video, I'm going to talk about this signing, a little bit what it means about Texas, maybe, but the main focus of this is just ranting about the Mets and just their preparedness and just the way they approach this whole situation. If you like this video and want to make my day feel maybe a little better, you can leave a like, comment down below. What are your thoughts on the Degrom signing, and who do you want to see the Mets target next? That's another thing I'll cover in this video. And if you really want to help the channel grow, you can subscribe. It's greatly appreciated. And if you know the deal already, I would do the whole spiel, but I'm just too upset. And honestly, I'm pretty pissed off with the way the Mets handled this, because what bothers me is that we're seeing, oh, well, it's 5 years, it's 6 years. The Mets only want to do 3. You think that the guy that you drafted, that you've had in your organization all this time, that you would hope you've maybe had a little bit of contract talks with along the way if you're a smart organization, like all these other smart organizations that sign their guys early and young and they get really good money on it, like all those other organizations that do that, that win and things like that. The Mets didn't do that. They say, no, Leo, let's go to free agency. And they're just caught off guard, like, oh my gosh, he wants more than 3 years? We can't believe this. We have to let him go. Like, they look so unprepared. If you knew that Jacob Degrom was never going to accept a 3-year deal, why didn't you trade him? That's what I can't wrap my head around, is that why do the Mets find themselves in a position where they got nothing? You just let Jacob Degrom walk and you have nothing to show for it. This was supposed to be a marquee guy, a franchise guy, things like that. It's like, oh, well, you know, maybe it's not smart to have him pitching in year 38, age 39. Do you know who's pitching for the Mets at age 38, age 39? The guy you just freaking signed last offseason, Max Scherzer. So if you're saying you don't want to have a guy pitching that's 38, 39, why the heck do you have Scherzer? And then what's the alternative? You sign Justin Verlander? He's even older. He's also 39. So I just don't understand exactly what the Mets' thought process is here. Because if this was the case, if you never were going to truly bring him back because you knew what he wanted, you had to know. Because if you, no matter what, you look unprepared. If you didn't know he wanted 5 years, you're an idiot. If you knew he didn't want to be with the Mets anymore, you're an idiot. You should have just traded him and at least got something. You know the kind of haul you could have got for this guy if you gave him to a contender and actually build your crappy farm system that you have right now that is super top heavy? Because if you don't sign Justin Verlander, you're literally left with Carlos Rodon and the dude from Japan, Sangage, whatever the hell his name is. I really don't care how do you pronounce his name, because he's not a major league pitcher. I need to see what you do in the big leagues. I can't go based off what the guy did overseas. It means nothing to me. I need to see it on the big league mound. So your only alternative then is you make a trade. But what costs the most in trades with prospect-wise? Young starting pitchers with team control. You know what you could have got? Prospects if you trade away DeGrom and then get a DeGrom replacement with a young pitcher. Maybe it's somebody from Milwaukee, Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff. Maybe with all those prospects you got for trading DeGrom, you can go get Zach Gallen. Like, you have these other possibilities. You have these contingency plans in case Jacob DeGrom were to ever leave. If you had the feeling that you didn't want to commit to him long term, or if he didn't want to be in New York anymore, either one could be possible. Maybe both are true, because DeGrom goes to a team that is not better than the Mets. I mean, I have nothing against the Texas Rangers, but they're not better than New York. So it's not like DeGrom went to a really good team and now he has a great chance to win. Like if DeGrom went to the Astros, okay, I understand that. He has a great chance to win the World Series. DeGrom finally wins a World Series. Good for him. But he goes to a team in the Texas Rangers, and then AAV-wise, you're looking at $37 million. You just gave Max Scherzer over 40-something million per year. So it's not like the money was completely outrageous. I mean, the Mets were literally just caught up on this whole years thing. So again, I just feel like the Mets don't look like a smart organization right now. They just don't look very like they had planned this whole thing out. Like it just caught them by surprise. Like, oh my gosh, he wants 5 years. We can't believe this. We thought it'd be 3. We thought we'd get him. It just looks very foolish, because I just don't get that. The Mets have this win now philosophy. They want to win the next 3 to 5 years. And if you're having these hard lines where like, okay, we're not going to go past this for a guy, how are they going to keep anybody? Because then what happens is that Brendan Nimmo, with him being a Scott Boras client, I just smell it. I can sense it that it feels like Brendan Nimmo is going to be overpaid big time. Are the Mets going to be willing to meet that or go above that and make sure that does not happen? Because similar to DeGrom, there isn't a lot of backup plans. So I just find it very hard to see how just letting Degrom walk, you don't trade him, you get nothing back for him. Same goes for Brandon Nimmo. If he leaves and goes somewhere elsewhere, you don't get anything back from him. You didn't trade him in his contract year. How does the Mets team become better next year than it was the past season? Because as far as those two positions, starting pitcher and center fielder, there ain't much out there. Are the Mets going to sign Judge? I mean, that's the only way you can make this better. If you lost Degrom and Nimmo, it's Judge or nothing. I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it, because I just don't see how else they're going to do this. They still have to get a number 3 starter, along with getting a number 1 or 2. If they want to move Max up to the 1 and get a 2, they need at least a 2 and 3. They need a 5. They need a whole bullpen, because you gave all your money to a closer on a 5-year deal. You don't want to go 5 years for Degrom, but you want to go 5 years for a closer. That's not usually how baseball teams operate, but the Mets are just so much smarter than everybody else, obviously. I mean, you look at what it's brought them, all these championships the Mets are winning with these great philosophies they have and the way they approach things. It just makes absolutely no sense. I mean, Degrom is a guy that he didn't really complain much. He did a lot for this organization. He was here winning Cy Youngs when the team was absolute crap. The team sucked, and he was still getting the job done. And it's like, this is the thanks you have for him? You just say, you know what, we don't want to keep you that long. We think you're a risk. And Degrom has his injury risk. I'm not an idiot. I understand that. But if that was the case, if that's how you felt all along, you should have just traded him. That's my only thing. You should have traded him. If you didn't want to keep him long term, you should have got at least something, anything back from him. I don't care what it is. You have to get something. You can't just be caught with your pants down and the man is gone and you have nothing to show for it. You're just back to square one. So, I mean, is it even a guarantee the Mets get Carlos Rodon? I mean, you think that with Degrom off the board, all these other teams are going to be focused on Rodon, maybe focused on Verlander. So I just don't see, the philosophy doesn't match up. If you didn't want to pay Degrom at age 38, 39, you shouldn't be paying Max Scherzer, and you shouldn't even be interested in Justin Verlander if that's your whole thing. You don't want to pay a guy that's that old. I mean, you're doing it. So it really just doesn't make sense. It's very inconsistent, and it's just overall very frustrating. It's not something I thought was going to happen. I really thought that, you know what, the Mets were probably going to retain Jacob Degrom. I didn't see him leaving. You just felt like he was a Met. He was going to be one of those guys that's a Met for life. So we're still stuck with Ed Kranepool and David Wright. Those are our forever Mets. It's just sad. It really is. So, I do, unless Jacob Degrom had anything bad to say about the Mets, I mean, I for the most part, I wish him well. We'll see what happens with Texas. They still have more to do. You know, they got Martin Perez to accept the qualifying offer. They have John Gray. I think the rotation still needs a little more. The lineup, it still needs a little more. They got their big players, you know, their Simeon, their Seager, and guys like that. They have some young pieces coming up, but Texas still needs a little more if they do want to be a team that's competing, not only in the American League West with how Houston just won the championship, Seattle being very aggressive. They made a trade today, and they've also made multiple trades throughout this course of the offseason, also acquiring Teoscar Hernandez. So Texas still has plenty to do if they want to just compete even in their own division, let alone the American League in total. So I'm very curious to see where the Mets go from here, because I don't know right now. I'm just very confused because, again, I would just look at thought process. I just don't think it's good thought process. I don't think it's good planning, because you have to be consistent with your mindset. If your philosophy, if your approach is we don't pay guys at 39, 40, you don't sign Max Scherzer, you don't even consider Justin Verlander. So that's out the window. And then if you always felt that we were never going to give DeGrom more than 3 years, and you knew he wouldn't accept that, you should have just traded him. It may have hurt more at the time, but in the long term, it definitely would have been worth it than to be where you're at right now, where you're literally pretty much forced to get Carlos Rodon. And Carlos Rodon, good pitcher, he ain't DeGrom. I mean, that's the sad thing about it. So I have a video coming out tomorrow. It was an off-season preview. Guys, I thought the Mets should sign. I was under the assumption that they were probably going to keep Jake. So that video, it might not be perfect, accurate, and things like that, but still is something I worked pretty hard on, so I want to try to get that out tomorrow. But again, let me know what you guys think, and subscribe to Mets Weekly and all that stuff. And be safe, be smarter than the Mets, be healthy, and let's go Mets. Fix this.